What if I told you someone sold an international airport that never existed for a jaw-dropping $242 million? This isn't a Hollywood heist. This is the true story of Emmanuel Nwude, a Nigerian banker turned con artist who pulled off one of the boldest scams in modern financial history. Today, on Behind the Crime, we unravel how a single man, without violence or hacking, fooled an entire international bank and got away with millions. The man behind the mask. Emmanuel Nwude wasn't your typical criminal. In fact, he was once respected, a former director of Union Bank of Nigeria. Nwude had insider knowledge of finance, international transfers, and the perfect contacts. But ambition led him down a darker path. Greedy for more power and riches, he devised a scheme so unbelievable it actually worked. The grand illusion. Selling an airport. The year was 1995. Nwude took on a new identity. He impersonated Paul Ogwuma, the then governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. With forged documents and fabricated letters, he contacted Nelson Sakaguchi, a director at Banco Noroeste, a Brazilian investment bank. He pitched him an exclusive deal, an investment in a new international airport in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, still under construction. The bait? A personal $10 million commission for Sakaguchi if the bank invested early. Greed clouded judgment, and over the next 3 years, money started flowing. The London ruse. The meeting that sealed the scam. By 1995, the plan was in motion. The phone calls, the documents, the central bank letterheads. It had all set the stage. But to truly sell a fantasy of this scale, they had to make it feel real. So, they took the con international. A meeting was arranged. The location? London. Neutral ground, familiar to bankers and far from suspicion. Here, Emmanuel Nwude would meet Nelson Sakaguchi, the Brazilian bank executive hungry for profit and connections. The meeting. Selling the illusion. In a high-end conference suite in central London, a calm silence hung in the air. Sakaguchi sat waiting, nervous, curious, hopeful. Then entered the Nigerian delegation. At the center, Emmanuel Nwude, posing confidently as Paul Ogwuma, governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. At his side, Christian and Amaka Anajemba, dressed sharply, acting as senior aviation and financial officials. Behind them, a briefcase filled with forged contracts, stamped letters, and fake financial breakdowns. Even the fake Ministry of Aviation had sent a formal invite signed by a fabricated official named Tafida Williams. The con was going live. Nwude sat across from Sakaguchi, unshaken, composed. "We are honored to welcome you today, Director Sakaguchi," he began, placing a leather-bound folder on the polished table. "This represents Nigeria's strategic aviation future." They laid out the plan, a brand new international airport to be built in Abuja, the rising capital of Nigeria. They spoke of timelines, projected revenue, state backing, and government approvals. Every word rehearsed, every paper forged, every smile loaded with manipulation. Then came the hook. "Secure your bank's investment early," said Nwude, "and you, personally, will receive a $10 million commission." Sakaguchi sat back. He nodded. He shook hands. At that moment, the illusion wasn't just alive. It was flawless. Commit, commit, commit. Back in Brazil, Sakaguchi returned not with suspicion, but with confidence. He believed he'd struck gold, and without further inspections, without any government confirmation, without a single visit to Abuja, he began wiring money. First, $191 million in direct transfers to offshore accounts. Then, $51 million more in interest and transaction smoothing. The total, $242 million. For an airport, that never existed. This wasn't just a scam on paper. It was a performance, staged, scripted, and executed like a con artist's masterpiece. They wore official titles, they built believable identities, and they transformed fiction into financial reality. In London, the con moved from telephone wires to eye contact. And that's when Sakaguchi fell all the way in. Between 1995 and 1998, the Brazilian banker wired $191 million in direct cash and $51 million in accumulated interest, a total of $242 million gone to fund a fake airport that didn't even exist. Nwude, along with several accomplices, was swimming in wealth. They bought luxury mansions, cars, and lived lavishly, all while Banco Noroeste bled money. So, how did they get caught? In 1997, Spanish bank Banco Santander attempted to acquire Banco Noroeste. As part of due diligence, they found massive unexplained funds, nearly $250 million, sitting in offshore Cayman Island accounts. Alarm bells rang. Investigations began. By 2001, Banco Noroeste collapsed under the scandal, and all fingers pointed to one name: Emmanuel Nwude. Nigeria's newly formed Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, arrested Nwude and 5 accomplices. In 2005, after a long trial, Nwude pleaded guilty to 40 out of 86 charges. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison and fined $10 million. Authorities seized $121 million in cash and assets. But here's the twist. Nwude only served a few years behind bars. By 2006, he was out. Even more shocking, he later recovered millions in assets he claimed were legally earned. The case of Emmanuel Nwude became one of the biggest banking frauds in global history, third only to the Barings Bank collapse and the Saddam Hussein heist. It also served as a wake-up call, sparking financial reforms in both Brazil and Nigeria. But Nwude's story is more than just a scam. It's a tale of ego, greed, and the vulnerabilities of even the most sophisticated financial systems. In the end, Emmanuel Nwude didn't need guns, masks, or violence. He used nothing but forged papers, false titles, and a flawless performance. He sold a dream, an international airport that never existed, and in doing so, drained a global bank of nearly $250 million. Though he was caught, tried, and sentenced, the shadows of his fortune still linger. Some of his wealth returned to him. His name? Forever linked to one of the boldest frauds in financial history. The lesson is clear. Scams don't always look like strangers on the street or spam in your inbox. Sometimes, they arrive in suits with polished voices and documents that look all too real. This has been the story of Emmanuel Nwude, the man who sold a phantom airport. If you found this story shocking, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Because here on Behind the Crime, we uncover the darkest minds and the boldest cons in history. Until next time, stay cautious, stay sharp, and remember, if a deal sounds too good to be true, it probably is.